Hello everyone, what's Gucci? Hope you're having an awesome day wherever and whenever you're watching this. I'm your host Ayman Hassan and welcome back to another video here at Most Amazing Top 10. Now, hearing about pirates growing up was always fun because I feel like the idea of a rebel at sea looking for treasure and having a pet parrot and a peg leg is just interesting. Let's be real. The only real pirate I actually knew about was Captain Hook and Captain Jack Sparrow, but still, it counts. But with treasure comes consequences, and those consequences are usually curses. Whether that treasure comes from pirates, from emperors, or from Nazis, it's never just, oh, you find it and there's your happily ever after. So let's talk about it. This is the top 10 scary cursed treasure. Starting us off with number 10 is Charles Island. Now, the island is located offshore from the town of Milford, Connecticut. It's not that big, it's around 14 acres with no real structures on it whatsoever. And the only interesting thing about it is the fact it's been cursed 3 times already. The first time was by the chief of the Pawgasset tribe, who was so upset by the invasion of white settlers, he cursed the island to never accept them and make their structures disintegrate, which worked because the land is actually too unstable for any permanent structure anyway, and it's never been inhabited for long. The second curse came 60 years later. Scottish pirate Captain William Kidd stopped there and buried a huge trove of stolen treasure, and it said that whoever uncovered it would face a life of misfortune or death, which is what I feel like we face anyway, so sure. And the third and final curse was 22 years after that. A group of sailors stashed a bunch of treasure on the island that apparently once belonged to Mexican Emperor Guatemozin, who had cursed his treasure himself. Now, 4 of the 5 people who found his treasure initially were all killed by the curse, but the sole survivor tried to save himself by dumping it and its curse on Charles Island. If getting cursed thrice wasn't bad enough, get this. In 1850, 2 treasure hunters apparently went to the island in search of these treasures, and they managed to actually find a hoard of treasure. I mean, good on you, you got it. But when they got around to opening it, they were attacked by a flaming skull or skeleton. They managed to escape, but their sanity declined quickly, and both spent the rest of their lives in an insane asylum, which really sucks. Coming in at number 9 is the 9-time killer. This one takes place at the Cahuenga Pass, which is a low mountain pass located in LA. So back in 1864, 4 soldiers were sent by Benito Juarez from Mexico to San Francisco with a bunch of treasure, jewels, coins, etc. They went to buy munitions for the Mexican War, but one of them died on the journey there, and so the other 3 buried the treasure for safekeeping. However, a man named Diego Morena was watching this and made off with the treasure after the soldiers left. He stopped overnight at the Cahuenga Pass, but had a horrible dream that if he took the treasure to LA with him, he would die. So he buried the treasure there, but still ended up dying anyway, so that just really wasn't ideal. But before he died, he told his friend Jesus Martinez where the treasure was, so him and his stepson went out to look for it. Jesus had a heart attack and died as they started digging, and his stepson was shot a decade later. A tiny bit of the treasure was found in 1885 by a shepherd, but he fell overboard on his way back to Spain, and the gold in his pockets made him sink to the bottom of the ocean. And no, the death just doesn't stop there. Finally, in 1939, an oil expert called Henry Jones took a film crew to the area to excavate the treasure, but all they found was dirt and then some more dirt. And Jones later committed suicide because of the epic fail. So this one bit of treasure essentially brought 9 people to their death. Maybe stop looking for it, guys. Just a suggestion. At number 8 we have the Amber Room. Now, the Amber Room was a gift given to Peter the Great back in 1716, and it was even dubbed the 8th wonder of the world at one point. The room was filled ceiling to floor with jewels and mosaics, and the walls were made with 20 different hues of amber. And back then, amber was a really precious commodity, so this room was basically used striking gold. So towards the end of World War II, the room itself was stolen. The Nazis took control of it and dismantled it for safekeeping. They displayed it in a museum for 2 years before the room straight up disappeared. People say it disappeared because of the curse the room came with. Now, the museum's curators both died of typhus, and their bodies couldn't be found ever, and the doctor that signed their death certificates also vanished at the same time, which was also just sus as hell. General Gusev was also someone who was linked to the room, and he also mysteriously died in a car accident. The cherry on top was George Stein, who was probably the most prominent Amber Room hunter in the world. He was found naked, discovered dead with his stomach cut open in a random Bavarian forest. Filling our number 7 slot is 40 feet below. Now, Oak Island is a tiny island located off the coast of Nova Scotia right here in Canada. Back in 1795, two boys saw weird lights on the island, so they decided to investigate, and they found a freshly dug hole. Pirates were abundant in that area at the time, since Nova Scotia is a maritime province, so the boys hoped the hole had inside of it a large amount of treasure. They dug and dug but found no treasure. They found wooden barriers, layers of coconut shells, and then finally a strange encoded message. When deciphered, it read 40 feet below, 2 million pounds are buried. When that message was deciphered, you can bet on anything that people all over the world started trying to find it. Even Franklin Roosevelt tried to find it before becoming president. No one has found it till this day, but some have definitely died trying. The first death was in 1861 when a pump exploded and killed a worker. The next was 6 years later when Maynard Kaiser died after the rope that was lifting him from the pit fell off its pulley. So close, yet so far. And the third was in 1951 when a clamshell digger slipped off a barge and sunk. However, the last fatality was in 1965 when Robert Restall, his son, and 2 other workers died after falling into the pit and inhaling noxious fumes. I'm surprised at how well the curses on these chests of treasure actually work. Like, people are legitimately dying in many of the points on this list just for finding or having found the treasure. I'm shook. You should be too. Now at number 6 is the Lost Dutchman's gold mine. Again, this sounds like something out of The Simpsons, but it is not. The Lost Dutchman is a gold mine hidden somewhere in the east of Phoenix, Arizona, near the Apache Junction. The name or curse of the area comes from a man called Jacob Waltz, who wasn't actually a Dutchman, he was a Deutschman, so he was German, but the name ended up sticking anyway. Jacob spent 20 years looking for gold, and it said he finally did find magical veins of gold there before his death. The Apache tribe in the area always knew it was filled with gold, but the thunder god convinced them to stay away from it and not go looking for it. Francisco Vasquez, a Spaniard, tried to mine for the gold, but his men started turning up mutilated and murdered, so he gave up. In 1845, Don Miguel Peralta actually found a vein of gold, but was massacred by angry Apaches for going against their warnings. Yikes. In 1931, a treasure hunter called Adolph Ruth actually disappeared whilst looking for the gold, but his skull was found 2 years later with a note that read Veni Vidi Vici, aka I came, I saw, I conquered, implying that he did find the gold before dying. Either way, these veins of gold have not been found by anyone that has managed to live and tell the tale, so maybe we should take that as a sign. Coming in at number 5 is the Templar treasure. Now, this title just made me really happy because I'm a huge fan of Assassin's Creed. I've played every single one, so even though I hate Templars in the game because they just get in the way of all the quests, I was like, wow, a reference I understand. But anyway, fangirling aside, in 1312 the Knights Templar were dissolved for good by Pope Clement V, and they started getting arrested all around Europe. And if you don't know what the Knights Templar was, it was basically a group of knights that had to protect Christian pilgrims who were traveling to the Holy Land. But before they were caught, it said that they hid a bunch of treasure, and a lot of it consisted of holy relics like the Holy Grail that they apparently found in Jerusalem. The last Grand Master of the Order was fuming and cursed the King of France and the Pope for causing the Templars' decline. Weirdly enough, both men ended up dying the next year, and the treasure was never found. At number 4 is the Ghost Train. At the end of World War II, it was pretty evident that Germany was in bad shape in every aspect. So they decided to go into survival mode and hide valuable treasure that they had accumulated over the past 6 years from looting museums and Jewish families around Europe. So in the Alpine forest of Austria, Nazi officers sunk billions of dollars worth of Reichsbank's gold into Lake Toplitz to keep it hidden. In 1959, divers managed to find containers filled with millions and millions of dollars of fake currency from the Allied nations. It was part of the Nazi plot to destroy their economies by causing inflation. I mean, petty, but fair. To date, 7+ people have drowned in this lake looking for the lost Nazi treasure, but it's believed that it should never be found due to the people who hid it. All that bad karma resurfacing at once, that's just not good. Let's just let bygones be bygones and leave it at the bottom of the riverbed. Honestly, they probably hid it nowhere near the lake, and this was probably just a cover-up. Conspiracy theories. Filling our number 3 slot is the Lost Ark. About to dive into history right now, as I've been this whole video, but the Ark of Convent was a holy relic that contained the broken tablets of the 10 commandments that Moses got from God. It's meant to be so powerful that when the Israelites were banished from Egypt, it was the ark that was said to have parted the Jordan River. It was also said to have been the reason behind the fall of Jericho. So it definitely pulls its weight, that's for sure. But people have said if it lands up in the wrong hands, then terrible curses would ensue. When the Philistines took the ark, the whole city got a deadly case of hemorrhoids, and the ark was then returned to the Israelites. There's also a ton of rules about handling the ark itself. The poles holding it can never be removed, it should only be carried on your shoulders, if you touch it you could die. There are just so many good and bad things said about it, and not every finder knows. The ark's whereabouts today are still unknown, and maybe it's better that way. Now at number 2 is the toxic tomb. I'm loving the alliteration that just happened there, it wasn't even planned when I made the title. Okay, it was. But anyway, one of the oldest tombs in the world that has never been opened belongs to China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. He died way back in 210 BC, and buried with him inside his tomb were hundreds of jewels, gold, slaves, and even concubines, as well as thousands of very intricately made terracotta statues. Because a man never dies alone, people, am I right? His tomb site is larger than the site of the Great Pyramids, and although a lot of the rooms have been excavated, his actual mausoleum is off limits. It's supposedly cursed, and writing has even been found claiming there are booby traps all over the area protecting him. If that doesn't deter the average treasure hunter, the tomb is also surrounded by a river of mercury, so if you fall in that, it could be deadly. Hence, in the 50 years of exploring this tomb, not once has anyone tried to enter the mausoleum. And finally, at number 1 is Tamerlane. Now Tamerlane, or Timur, was a Turco-Mongol conqueror, and he founded the Timurid Empire in Asia and Persia, and ended up being its first ruler. He died in 1405 during a winter military campaign, and he was entombed with the amount of treasure and jewels fit for a great emperor, so imagine that. In 1941, Soviet anthropologists tried to desperately find his tomb against the warnings of the Muslim clergy, warning them not to disturb his sleep. His body ended up being exhumed that same year, and they found an inscription on top of his tomb. It said, "When I rise from the dead, the world shall tremble." But that didn't stop them from opening it and taking his body out, even though they probably shouldn't have. And surprise surprise, there was another inscription inside the tomb which read, "Whomsoever opens my tomb shall unleash an invader more terrible than I." And 3 days later, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest military invasion of all time. Should have listened to the inscriptions, guys. And that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you guys learned why it's probably not the best idea to go searching for cursed treasure just to make all your wildest and richest hopes and fantasies come true. You could also just stay not rich, but alive. There are pros and cons to both, I mean seriously. But as always, I've been your host Eamon Hassan, and I'll see you next time. Bye!